very few people indeed have sought in any systematic way to analyze the end of the Soviet Union and its aftermath in the context of the study of the end of empire, the wider study of the end of empires and their consequences. And from that point of view, what was special about the end of the Soviet Union was certainly not the conflicts that followed. In some ways, until this, of course, disastrous war in Ukraine, it was the conflicts that did not follow. And the reasons why conflicts, not nearly as many conflicts as one would have expected from the experience of other empires, why more conflicts did not follow, had to do with two actually unique aspects, I think, of the Soviet Union, its fall. One was that Soviet political institutions were far, far more deeply rooted in societies because of the Communist Party and its local structures extending, down to village level, really. This was a system far more embedded in not just, of course, in Russia, but in all the republics of the former Soviet Union, than anything that was seen in European overseas empires. Famously said that the whole of the British Empire in India was run by fewer than 1,000 British officials, and of course, 60,000 British troops. But this, like most of the French Empire, was an indirect empire with very limited numbers of centralized and officials from the metropolis ruling through local intermediaries. Whereas the Communist Party in the Soviet Union, of course, recruited local people at the Republican level, at least, local indigenous people to the highest levels of the bureaucracy, and as I say, extended very, very deeply throughout society. So if you look at the aftermath of empire, in Africa, in much of Asia, you see either its complete collapse, as for example in Vietnam or Myanmar, or the former systems carrying on, but only through the bureaucracy and the army, but certainly not, through an embedded system existing throughout society. And that meant that there was a great degree of continuity and a great degree of stability, at least for a long time, in the former Soviet Union, because mostly the local Communist Party elite just renamed themselves. The Communist Party of wherever it was renamed itself the Party of National Regeneration, or the Party of National Progress and Unity, or something of the sort, and trundled on pretty much as before under the same communist leadership. There were few exceptions to this. The Baltic states, of course, were one of them. The Balts had a very particular history of independence, until 1940, of much closer links to the West. The Estonians basically speak a variety of Finnish, or vice versa, and much greater involvement, even before independence, from the West. I was stationed mostly in the Baltic states for the Times from the start of 90 to the start of 93. Elsewhere, it must be said, and this was also critical to maintaining the unity of the Russian Federation itself, with the notable exception of Chechnya. And one of the reasons why Chechnya exploded when really nowhere else did within the Russian Federation was precisely that, because of deep distrust of the Chechens and because of the deportation of the Chechens from 1944 to 1956, the local Chechen communist leadership only became fully indigenized. The first secretary of the Communist Party of the Chechen English Republic only became a Chechen close to the end of the 1980s. As a result, he and his network did not have the time to build up a deeply rooted clientele in the Chechen state and society. And so it collapsed, or was actually overthrown during the coup of August 1991. The consequences for Chechnya were absolutely disastrous. And it must be said that wherever the Communist Party was overthrown in the former Soviet Union, except for the Baltic states and Armenia, actually, which replaced it with a highly disciplined, basically military government, the consequences were disastrous. It happened in Georgia. Georgia, of course, plunged into multiple civil wars. It happened in Azerbaijan, which then lost the war in Karabakh. Happened in Tajikistan, which plunged into civil war. But it didn't happen in Tatarstan within Russia or in, well, until recently, in Ukraine or in Kazakhstan or in Uzbekistan.